In this video, I'm going to uncover the 5 biggest lessons I learned after sending over 1 million emails in the past 12 months alone. If I had known these 5 things when I just got started with cold email, I would be 5 times further by now, and that's my exact goal with this video. If I can show you guys this information and help you skip the learning process, you're going to have a much easier time doing cold email, all right? So let's get into it. Now, for starters, I want to talk about deliverability. Now, I'm not going to make the whole example of how if your deliverability is bad, then nothing else matters, because you already know this, right? This is common sense. I don't have to say this. You obviously understand that if your prospects are not getting your emails, it's not going to matter. Now, the thing with deliverability is that most people will radically overcomplicate it and make it into this big thing which seems complex, when in reality, it's not that difficult. Now, my personal thesis to why people do this is because the majority of people making these videos own cold email products and or services, and they're trying to give you the impression that cold email is a lot more difficult than it really is, when in reality, that's honestly not the case, okay? Now, for starters, this is coming from a lead generation agency owner with over 10,000 accounts under management with an average deliverability of 95%. On top of this, we do also own a coaching program called Lead Academy, where there's like 200 plus lead generation agencies owners in there. And the majority of them who actually do the stuff that they're supposed to do have perfect deliverability as well. Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying this to flex my deliverability or anything, but the raw reality is that it's really not that difficult. Okay. Now, the truth with deliverability is pretty simple. There is a defined quantity of things that you must do and a defined quantity of things that you should not do. It really is that simple. Do this, don't do that. That's it. For example, you should set up your DKIM, DMARC, and SPF records. That's not an opinion question. You most certainly should do that, okay? You should avoid spam words, right? That's not an opinion question. You should do that. You should use a private sequencer. Again, we'll get into what that is in another video, but you should be using something like Email Bison. You should keep your email account volume low. Again, you put 1,000 emails a day on your account and you have bad deliverability, don't ask yourself why you have bad deliverability. It's pretty clear, okay? Then there's things you should not do. For example, you should not track open rates. As soon as you enable that setting, goodbye to your deliverability, right? So for starters, that's not something you should do. You should not send links, files, or attachments. You should not use private infrastructure. You should not try to game the system. A lot of people think that they are, like some sort of mastermind, right? And they think that, I'm going to like figure out how Google's algorithm works and, I'm going to outsmart this $1 trillion company. You're not outsmarting anybody, with all due respect, okay? Google's algorithm and Microsoft's algorithm is a lot smarter than all of us. Do not try to game the system. Just please do cold email the way it's supposed to be done. Emulate what an actual SDR will do. You'll get results, you'll be happy, you'll make money, and everything will be great, okay? The second that you start trying to figure out a way to lie to their algorithm, you're complicating it. Just don't do that. Just do things the way you're supposed to do things, okay? Hey guys, we're gonna get right back to the video in just a minute. But real quick, do you want a done-for-you cold email lead generation solution that is able to consistently book you meetings with your ideal buyers? We just helped Morty from Your Business Now book over 30 clients in just 2 months of working together, and Avi from Daily Dose of Data Science get over 40 calls in our first 10 days of sending cold email. Now, if you guys want a consistent flow of buyers on your calendar, you can book a meeting with me and my team in the description below. Okay, talk soon. Now, this video isn't meant to be a full breakdown on how to achieve perfect deliverability. I have plenty of other videos, and so do other creators. So, that's hands down a different subject. But if you are interested in that, then go watch another video that's on my channel. But point is like those are an example of things you should do and things you shouldn't do. Okay. Now, we used to look at deliverability on a super detailed level. Like if you even watch some of my older videos, I talk a lot about, doing multiple inbox placement tests, having multiple infrastructure providers, having to register domains on several registrars and buying accounts with proxies and unique credit cards and, rotating accounts. I will be honest with you guys, this does absolutely nothing. It genuinely does absolutely nothing, right? Our current deliverability setup is very, very simple. We have one domain registrar, that is Pork Bun. We have one account reseller, that is Cheap Inboxes. We have one email sequencer, that is Email Bison. We have one credit card, that is an Amex Platinum. And we have one biweekly inbox placement test, and that is it. We don't play any games. We don't, use some sort of magical infrastructure. it's really that it just doesn't exist. Okay, we just use normal things, but we just send good emails. Okay. Now, my personal opinion is that humans have a natural tendency to try to complicate things because it makes us feel like we're better at them, right? When you're doing all these things and you're learning about these technologies, you kind of make yourself feel like you're a professional, when in reality, that's not what you're doing. You're just complicating things, right? In reality, true sophistication is simplicity, right? If you can find a way to keep things as effective as they are when it comes to cold email, but you can keep them streamlined and, replicable, that is true sophistication. How effortlessly can you complete a service? How effortlessly can you generate leads? Not how many infrastructure diversification platforms do you have, okay? It really, really isn't that deep. You should not need to go to Harvard for an IT degree just to set up some email accounts, okay? Now moving on. The only thing that matters is offer. Now, what I'm going to say right now will shock a lot of people, but it's the raw reality. Angles, scripts, subject lines, intent signals, clay, follow-ups, automations, all of these tactics are 99% of the time irrelevant. Now, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, but George, I know this one guy who, tested this angle and, it worked for him and that changed his campaign. Again, there is no such thing as absolute polarity in marketing. There is no statement that is 100% true 100% of the time. From my personal experience, all of these things, they make very, very minor adjustments to campaigns. If your campaign isn't working, all of a sudden you test a different angle, it's not just going to start working all of a sudden, okay? The majority of the time, it is an offer problem, okay? Now, the only thing that will make your campaign work is a good offer, and that's it, right? And when I say making a campaign work, I mean cash in the bank collected. I don't mean you booked sales calls. I don't mean you got positive replies. I mean you actually made money from it, okay? Now, if you sell a generic service to a generic market, even if you're good at the service, it's just not going to work, okay? You need something new, something bold, and something that's going to set you aside from everyone else. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't still offer something like SEO or paid ads. It just means that you need to find a way to make it somewhat unique, okay? Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking, George, I run an e-commerce marketing agency. How do you want me to position it differently? Now, my honest answer is that if you want to make money, figure it out, because it really is that simple. I have plenty of videos on positioning. There's tons of videos on unique selling propositions, on unique mechanisms. There's tons of people who are even more qualified than me to tell you about this sort of stuff, right? And there's tons of content. If you just watch it and you learn about it and you go funnel hack your competitors, go look at what other people are doing, you'll get an understanding of how you can separate yourself from everybody else. Now, I'm personally acquainted with the owners of some of the largest e-commerce marketing agencies, just to go back to what the example was. And I can say that all of them do have their own unique angle, right? They're not just saying, hey, I just run ads like everybody else. Like, they have a unique angle. Maybe their unique angle is that, they have phenomenal results. Maybe their unique angle is they have a guarantee. Maybe their unique angle is they work with a specific type of healthcare brand or a specific type of brand. Whatever it might be, they have something. It's not just like, hey, I offer the same thing as everyone else. I just am a higher price, right? That's ridiculous. Now, in terms of testing angles, subject lines, copy, and all that stuff, it really doesn't make that big of an impact, okay? Now, again, you can play around with these factors in your campaigns, and maybe you will make your campaign 10 to 20% better, but it's not gonna make your campaign 100 to 200% better, right? If you want marginal changes, you want marginal things, the biggest lever you can pull is offer. That's the only thing that's really gonna make a huge difference, okay? Now, the next thing is the bottleneck is always data. I've heard this question a lot of people saying something like, oh, we book 10 calls, sending 10,000 emails a day. I'm just going to send 10 million emails and book 1,000 calls. That is just not how it works, because you just do not have that much data, okay? Cold email is not as scalable as something like paid ads or having a personal brand, right? It really isn't. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it is, because they're two different channels. Cold email is the absolute best channel for people who have a defined ICP, for people who have large TAM. That's who cold email is for. If you don't have a decent TAM, then it's not for you. And we'll talk about that in a later slide. But point is, the biggest bottleneck will always be data. Now, the person with the most amount of data is always the person who's going to get the biggest results with cold email. Now, you need to have infrastructure to scrape any type of data platform on the market. Now, of course, this includes being able to scrape things like Google My Business, being able to scrape things like Clutch, being able to scrape things like Getlatka. Of course, the actual niche database changes depending on who you're targeting, but you need to be able to scrape these things. Okay, which by the way is a Lead Academy utility if you guys are interested. But back to the presentation. Ideally, obviously, you have access to Apollo and ZoomInfo and PitchBook and Seamless and Lusha and all these different databases, because that's going to give you the widest data set on whoever it is you're going after, right? Now, again, this is not realistic for most people who are getting started, because these data providers do cost north of 6 figures per year on just data. So again, you're not going to do this when you're just getting started with cold email, but you need to keep that in mind, that is the biggest bottleneck. It's data. It's always going to be data, which again, it can be solved with money. So if you do want to scale to like 7 figures a month, with just cold email, keep in mind, that's going to be the thing that you need to optimize for. Now, the next thing is cold email genuinely doesn't work for everyone, right? Now, again, this is one of those things you're probably thinking to yourself, but George, XYZ said so otherwise. I guarantee you, XYZ person probably has something to sell in related to cold email, right? Now, so do I. I also have something that you can buy that's related to cold email, but I'm honest because I, wanted to actually get people who can actually, be helped by my products, not just anybody, right? Now, the raw reality is that for a lot of businesses, cold email really is not the best channel, okay? And is outright just not logical, okay? Now, let's get into it. For starters, let's define who cold email can work for. B2B. You absolutely, 100% speaking, have to be a B2B business for cold email to work. B2C cold email is illegal in the United States of America, in Europe, and in Australia. I don't know about the laws in all the other countries, in the other parts of the world, but they are illegal in the European Union, in the United States of America, or North America in general, and Australia, which are the 3 main places where you do cold email, right? Or at least we do cold email, right? Now, again, we don't mess with that. If you do B2B, then that's when you consider cold email. If you don't do B2B, don't consider cold email, okay? The next thing is defined ICP. If you just sell to everyone in the world, like literally just any business, it's not gonna work. You need to have some sort of qualification criteria, right? If you just work with B2B and that's it, you're not gonna see results through cold email because that's just way too broad, okay? Like for us, obviously, yeah, we say that we help B2B companies, but on top of that, there's a bunch of different filters. You have to be making a certain amount of revenue. You have to have a defined ICP. You have to have a certain TAM. There's other things that go on top of that, which make us have a defined ideal client profile, which makes cold email effective for us, okay? That's why you need to have that if you want results. Now, industries where it's very unlikely. Something like consulting and coaching. Again, if you work with any sort of coaching and you do cold email, it's probably not going to work, right? Now, unless you sell something like really high ticket enterprise, like mid-market solutions, where it's something like, I don't know, like consulting on a certain software or something like that, that I could potentially see working. But if you own like an Amazon FBA course and you try to do cold email, like it's just absolutely not happening, right? That's just not gonna work, all right? Low TAM businesses. If you sell to a low total addressable market, it is not going to work. Now, the thing is, there's a caveat here because it depends on how low. Let's say you sell to like Fortune 500 CEOs. There's only 500 Fortune 500 CEOs because that's the nature of Fortune 500. Now, automated cold email is not the way to go. Personalized cold email, where you write out every single email yourself, is a completely different story. That might work, right? But again, when it's really low like that, it's not worth it, okay? Additionally, if you target, for example, like rock climbing gyms, like realistically speaking, there's max like 2,000, 3,000 rock climbing gyms in the entire world, right? If your total addressable market is like 2,000 to 3,000, you're not gonna see anything significant from cold email, right? So again, low TAM is just not the best market for cold email, right? Again, you can still do it, and I probably would still do it if that was who my ideal client profile is, but not with an agency. Like, it would not make sense for you to pay an agency to do cold email if you have a low TAM business, okay? B2B is not B2 solopreneur, so this is a distinction that I've started looking at recently. For example, a real estate agent usually operates as a contractor. When you operate as a contractor, you're technically a business. They do have an LLC registered. But the thing is, the real estate agent is not a business. they're really a solopreneur. Yes, they are formulated as a business, but they're not a real business, right? Now, I want to have a key distinction there. A business is an actual business which employs people, has a revenue, has a net profit, a gross profit. That is a business. Someone who is an LLC and works as an independent contractor is not a business. That is a solopreneur. Okay. Now with cold email, it works a lot better for B2B than it does for B2C. Okay. If you're contacting actual businesses, cold email is great. If you're contacting people who are like real estate agents, again, real estate agents can work, that specific example. But for example, like if you're contacting dog walkers, right? Like dog walkers are technically B2C, or they're technically B2B because they have, an LLC and blah, blah, blah. But that's not a real business. Like you're really just an individual who's an independent contractor who's selling your services, and which is really just selling your time, right? That is not what you do cold email for. If your ideal client profile is dog walkers, stop doing cold email. It's not going to work for you, right? You want to be doing cold email when you're selling B2B. Now, industries where cold email is very effective. If you have a unique offer. Now, I'm not saying you have to sell like some like new hot thing. For example, one of our best performing clients to this day was a podcasting company, which was selling podcasting as a form of PR to nonprofits, right? Now, the thing is, what makes this unique? PR is not unique. PR is one of the most sold services in the world, right? But podcasting as a PR service is unique. And then to add the cherry on top, it's specifically to nonprofits, right? Now that case study's on our website if you want to see it. It's a company called 3 to 3 Media. I think we booked them like 40 calls in our first month working together. So they did really well. That's an example of a unique offer. High TAM businesses. For example, if you sell to if you are an e-commerce marketing agency and you sell to e-commerce brands, that's great for cold email, right? Because again, you have a ton of TAM. There's a lot of e-commerce companies. Then the next thing is very online present. If you are selling to large companies, online companies, or public companies, that's perfect. Reason why this matters is the way that all of these data providers work is they get their data from LinkedIn. If these companies aren't on LinkedIn, they're probably not on these data providers. So if you sell to like laundromats, right, or something like that, it's going to be really, really hard for you to get results through cold email. Now, if you sell to something like marketing agencies or e-commerce brands or, public companies, like obviously if a company's on the stock market, their information's out there, or if they're just a large company, like if they have 50 employees, odds are they have like a marketing team or they have a social media person and they're out there. They need to be out there. It can't just be super, super micro small businesses, right? And the last thing is unique positioning. Now, let's say that you, for example, place setters in businesses, right? It's like a staffing offer. That is very basic. Staffing is a very, very sold offer. Now, if you place these setters, but you offer a complete refund if they don't book you at least 20 to 30 appointments in the first month, all of a sudden, that's a unique position, right? You're attacking the market with a unique service or a generic service, but a unique mechanism, right? A unique position. That would be an offer that could potentially work through cold email. Now, point is again, you'll never know for certain whether cold email will work for you or it won't work for you. But this is a pretty good, tool that you can use to have an idea of who it will and won't work for. And final, cold email isn't just email. Now, if you think that you're just going to flick on a system and just manage a couple of replies and all of a sudden you're going to just start raking it in, you're in for a rude awakening, and that's the raw reality of things. Okay. The truth is that a lot of people don't talk about the work that you need to do after you turn on the cold email system. Everyone talks about how to get the most amount of replies, how to get the most, positive reply rate, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is the majority of the work happens after the reply is generated, not before, okay? Now, effective inbox management, which is what you need to do to get results, means you're calling every single positive reply until they are verbally opt in or out, right? Which means someone says they're interested over email, give them a call. Emailing every single positive reply in under 5 minutes. Now, again, this is not a hard rule. It's not like if you email someone back in 10 minutes, they're just not interested all of a sudden. But if you want maximum results, under 5 minutes is what you need to do. You need to connect with every single person on LinkedIn, right? You want to get in front of them. It needs to be impossible to ignore you. You need to chase these leads like the cold prospects that they are. Now, we've noticed a little bit of an interesting situation. A lot of our clients, when they start to work with us, they primarily rely on inbound sources of leads, whether it's referrals, whether it's, inbound, like something like SEO. they think that when they do outbound, it's just going to be more inbound quality leads, when it's absolutely not the case. Cold leads are 100 times harder to sell to than inbound leads, right? And you need to treat them as such. You need to actually follow up with these people. Send them 30 emails, call them 30 times. That's how you're going to get them to buy from you, okay? And if you disagree with that, I'm sorry, you're probably just wrong. That's how the biggest billion-dollar corporations have scaled sales teams. It's by following up, vigorous follow-up. And you can go ask anybody that's been a head of sales at a big company, and they'll tell you the same thing. Now, the last thing, managing new positive replies while also managing old positive replies. This is something that a lot of people struggle with. You have positive replies coming in, you deal with them, but then you have a new set of positive replies come in. All of a sudden, you kind of start neglecting the old ones, but the old ones are just as good as the new ones. You have to make sure that every single positive reply is being taken care of. Now, this is extremely important and can literally be the difference between you booking 10 calls a month and you booking 100 calls a month. Okay, having bad cold email inbox management is the equivalent of running paid ads where people opt in, but you just don't have a setter, right? Like that's like someone selling you a car without wheels, right? Like it's just like you don't just do that. Like you need to have it. Okay. Now you expect people to just read your ad, opt in, purchase, and that's it. That's not happening. That is not happening. That's not how marketing works. You need to follow up with people. You need to push the sale through, right? So same concept applies with cold email. Now, with the last point being made, I hope you guys got a little bit of value from this, or a lot of value actually from this video. I promise you that if you implement all 5 of these concepts, I guarantee you're going to see an increase in performance, because again, they seem very high level, but that's the recurring theme with all of marketing. Everything that is important is a high level concept, and then all the specifics don't really matter that much. So I hope you guys enjoyed, but before you go, I do want to mention something. If you don't want to deal with all of this and you just want a done for you cold email system, you just want to book appointments and deliver your service and not have to worry about any of that, then you can come book a call with us right here. Just a heads up, if your business doesn't make at least $500K a year, we can't help you. If you don't sell B2B, we can't help you. If you sell anything related to OnlyFans or adult content, we won't help you. And the last thing is our payment structure is a fixed retainer. We don't do performance deals. We don't do pay-per-call. I'm not interested in rev share. So that's the terms. If you are interested, I'll have the link in this document as well as the link in the description. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and until next time.